Hello, welcome to Underlords Universe. This is a place where we, who go by the name Underlords of the Overworld, we write and record music, and our bass player also writes fiction, and all of our stuff kind of is all intermeshed in sort of an intertwined, interconnected, conceptual universe that we also refer to as the Underlords Universe. Anyway, it's a little out there, but today my brother and colleague Brent and I, we're gonna do a little episode of what we call the Rock and Roll Book Report, and we're gonna talk a little bit about this here book by Martin Popoff, Kiss at 50. And if you're a Kiss fan and you're bored and stumble across our channel and you like what you see, that's cool. Please like, subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications. And if you stick around for the whole thing, give us a comment, throw in your own response. If you've got Popoff's new book, Kiss at 50, give us a thought. And at the very end, we'll make another comment about our own little creations. So I don't know, Brent, is that a good intro?
It's a very good intro. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So you got this, I think, you and I got this around the same time. I think you got this for me, didn't you?
I got it for you for Christmas.
That's right. That's right. As a good brother should. Uh,
Yeah,
I was on my reading list. I thought, yeah, you got this for me for Christmas. So at any rate, Kiss at 50, I think it's part of a series that's being put out by this publisher. And he's also got this other one that just came out, Van Halen at 50 as well, but we're not focused on that one today. I went into this book thinking it's a Martin Popoff book. It's going to be good. You kind of just know that going in if you know Martin Popoff. But it's like, man, I know so much about Kiss. I've read so much about Kiss. Is there anything really new that I'm going to get out of this? And I didn't go into it thinking that was like the goal. It was more of like I saw this as reading a timeline of highlights from the
mhm.
start of their career up through the end of the touring band. So I actually really enjoyed it. I really liked just these short snippet. I think there's 50 essays, right? And he
Mhm.
divides it up into themes, and then he's got kind of like these additional thematic pieces that kind of intertwine as well. And I actually just really enjoyed it. There were parts that I wouldn't have expected. Like I didn't really think, this he does a little chapter on Super Bowl 33, for example.
Right.
And it's like, okay, that's kind of a cool thing to put in there, and to kind of see something like that in the bigger sweep of the timeline of Kiss history, or Kisstory, as they say. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I like that. What did you think about the format? Did you like the format of this book?
I do like the format of the book. I think that's one of the things I found appealing about it because I asked myself, could I come up with 50 events, things, happenings, whatever, probably, but what would he come up with? What were the things that he
Hmm.
was going to put in the book? So I think from a format perspective, it is unique, and he does a really good job with that. And of course, it is in chronological order for the most part.
Yeah, so it is like reading a timeline.
Right. It's
Uh,
like reading a timeline. He's picked certain things, events throughout the career of the band that he wanted to focus on for whatever reason. And I think there was um, yeah,
hmm
a good cross section. A lot of time obviously spent in the formative years, um, but a lot of nice pictures and you know reviews. In keeping with the format, I said this to you before. I think he does a really good job. There you go.
Yeah.
Peaches in Georgia, 1976. Um, I think he does a really good job writing because he's a critic. But I think that in this book, I think he really just comes across as I'm writing a book about Kiss as a fan. And I think that's really evident
hmm
when you read this book. So it's really from a fan's perspective, I think. But I do like the format. I don't have any other books that are formatted like this, so it's pretty cool and
Yeah.
very unique.
It's very fast paced. It's an easy read. It's as you can see from some of the pages I just showed. There's a lot of cool pictures and stuff like that. There were actually a few things that I actually kind of learned along the way. Like for example, I thought his essay on the origin of the Kiss Army was maybe the best part of the book. That had more specifics, more details about the origin of the Kiss Army than I ever knew about, which for me was pretty cool. Maybe somebody out there is like, yeah, okay, that's, small potatoes to me. Maybe someone doesn't even care about that type of thing. But I thought it was cool, especially in the context of the whole kind of 50-year approach to the thing. I also don't know if I was aware that Kevin Valentine played on two songs on Hot in the Shade. Most
I'm not
most
sure.
of most of us know that he played on uh
Psycho Circus.
yeah, they did all the drums on Psycho Circus except for Into the Void. But I didn't know
Right.
that he played You Love Me to Hate You and King of Hearts on Hot in
I
the
don't
Shade.
I don't think I knew that. I don't think I knew that either. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's little nuggets, little tidbits that you're going to pull out of this book. I
Hmm.
do like another thing with how it's formatted is you can read. You called them essays. I like that. That's a good way to
That's how
characterize.
they come across to me.
You can read, you can read a few essays, put the book away for a while, come back a week later and read a few more. There are very
Yeah.
natural starting and stopping points based on how the book is formatted.
Yeah, so if you're reading like The Stand by Stephen King, which is like 1,400 pages, and you want to take a quick mental break, you know, but you still want to read something else, it's like, okay, read an essay or two in Kiss
Yeah,
of 50. And um
yeah.
yeah. And I think, Martin he's such, first of all, I really like a lot of his books because he's insightful, but he doesn't go for, you know, gossip. He doesn't go for the drama and the personal stuff. It's just about the art. It's just about the albums, the art, the careers. And on top of that, he's a good writer. I mean, I actually made some notes from some phrases that just kind of caught my attentions. At one point he refers to pimply purchasers. Like when he's talking about like young people buying these albums, he refers to them as like
Yeah,
pimply
yeah.
purchasers. He also referred to like when you get to the elder area and they're cutting their hair and stuff, he referred to Gene and Paul's weirdo close cropped hairstyles. Gene and Paul's weirdo close cropped hairstyles, which just struck me funny.
Well,
Um,
that's a very apt description. You can't really
right.
argue with that. That's
Here's
pretty good.
Here's another one. The eye-winking old tarts, golden age entertainers dressed like Christmas trees.
That's he's very creative in his writing, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
you've said, and I agree with this. You're the first one who told me this some time ago. You said one time, I'm always really interested in the backstory of a band that I really like, whether it's Van
Yeah,
Halen, Black Sabbath,
yeah.
whatever. And I agree with you. That's what makes these bands fascinating. And Martin does a really good job with that, with all the books that he has, keeping in mind that his focus is usually, like you said, it's on the records, it's on the songs. That's what
Hmm.
it's all about for him. And that's what I love about all of his work. And this book is the same, but he's focusing a little bit broader. This is not we're not looking at like we've done some Kiss videos about certain periods of time and reviewing albums. This is obviously not
Yeah.
that book.
It's
He
not a
has done
not a
books like
Yeah, it's not a deep dive kind of book at all,
no,
but it's not
no,
intended to be. And that's the thing. It's it's kind of an interesting thing because in a sense it's a cursory glance because you're getting this whole timeline, but you're getting these little tiny kind of deep dives, so to speak. I mean,
right.
they're not deep, but he's struck the balance really, really well. That's kind of
They're,
what I think for
they're
for a book like
insightful.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, depending upon how familiar you are with the band, you're going to learn a lot or nothing or very little from the book, but that's not really the point. I didn't get the book really to learn a whole lot. I knew I
yeah,
was going to pick up some things, but if you're relatively new to Kiss, this would be a great book to start because he literally picks 50 things from a 50-year career and touches on those. And in the middle, there's that nice pull out with the album
Yeah.
releases,
Yeah.
photographs of
That's
album covers and all that stuff.
yeah, and
And
that's also the same, I think, in the Van Halen book as well. But yeah, you get that, this
yeah, it's like a timeline,
yeah. Um,
which is kind of cool. So
yeah.
it's
The
it's really it's put together really well.
so
It's really put together nicely.
I also think it's kind of fun, when you're reading Popoff's books, by and large, he's like you said, he is a critic. He's a music journalist, but so he is going to throw in a little bit of his own opinions here and there, which I kind of always find, excuse me, my seltzer water is kind of, but I always find that kind of fun because when he throws his own opinion in there, I always think to myself like, if I agree with him, it's like, oh yeah, of course. But if I
Right.
disagree with him, it's kind of like, what? Come on, man!
I know. I
Like I
know.
had like he's not a fan of Dirty Living, of Roll Without Heroes.
Well, he's wrong. I mean, he's entitled to be wrong a couple
He's
times.
entitled to be wrong, yes. Saint and Sinner. I'm like, to me, Saint and
No,
Sinner. We'll talk about this when we do part three of
we,
our kissing. But I'm like, man,
dude,
I
no,
but
that's
that's part of the fun to me of reading Popoff stuff. Um, he did say something kind of interesting. He quotes Paul Stanley. I had never heard this before, but apparently Paul had said something about the Psycho Circus record, and he quotes Paul as saying that Bruce Fairbairn didn't know what Kiss was about. And I can kind of hear that when I listen to Psycho Circus, and we'll talk about that more in another episode. But the question that popped into my mind was, well, what if Paul had produced Psycho Circus? Like he did with Sonic Boom and Monster, um, or on the other hand, maybe Kiss as a band is just unproducible at that point, because with the reunion lineup, it's like how is that really going to function from a creative and recording standpoint? But I don't know. So I think sometimes his essays uh make me wonder, like, what ifs about, like, oh, okay, that's interesting, but how about, what if this,
well,
what
they're
if that?
thought provoking.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and not to jump off topic, but there is
sure.
a really good interview on YouTube with Bruce Fairbairn about making Psycho Circus.
Oh, really?
It's a pretty interesting interview.
Hmm,
Yeah.
cool.
Uh, and you wonder how much of that interview is him telling the truth or him just kind of maybe saying things that maybe Gene and Paul might approve of. I found it to be a pretty fascinating interview because we all know that was
Interesting.
an interesting time period for the band. As we all know, to
Well,
put it.
yeah, and to the point of the book, I think what Martin is doing is he's pinpointing along the way, from the first, from the beginning to the end, he's pinpointing these moments that are like the little shining element of each of those 50 years along the way, including some of the things you wouldn't necessarily expect, like Gene Simmons' Family Jewels show, which for a moment was kind of, where the spotlight was, for example.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, the Kiss Meets the Phantom, as an example of jumping the shark, and he, like a lot of people, that there's a lot of folks that are really, really critical of Kiss Meets the Phantom, but man, I mean, as a bit of cheesy kitsch, I mean, can you get any better,
Oh,
right? I mean,
no,
so
no, no.
we'll have to do a whole episode on Kiss Meets the Phantom too, but
Yeah. Well, and I think does a really good bit on the solo albums. You talk about jumping
mhm.
the shark. I mean, one can argue that the solo albums were also a bit of that. I read a quote or two from Paul Stanley the other day from back in the day about the solo albums, and it's kind of like, man, they were doing everything they could to try to present the image of a united front,
And
and
they're
that's basically.
anything
And
but.
we know now that everything was falling apart at the seams, but they were trying to create this illusion of unanimity, and it just wasn't there. But
Which
um,
you And the thing I think is kind of interesting about that from like a band history point of view is it's pretty miraculous for a band to form and function, let alone make it big, let alone be able to maintain itself, lineup changes or not. And whatever one might say about Kiss, Gene and Paul steered the ship, obviously with the help of Bill Aucoin originally, and then later on with Doc McGee. But you got to give some credit to those guys for being able to carry it on, one year after the next. So it's good to have a book like this, at this point. I'm hoping that we can get some sort of box set celebration of the 50th anniversary of the debut record. That would be cool. Not,
It really
I,
would. I mean, if there's ever a record that deserved that, that would certainly be it.
I know. And I got a lot of ideas about what could be in that. And maybe that's a discussion we should have, is if we were in charge of a Kiss 50th anniversary edition of the debut, what would be in it? But that's
I think
for another
I,
time.
that is a good idea. I think there actually is one out there, but it's not obviously it's not official, it's not authorized. But I think if you poke around, I think you can find something out there. I just don't know how what type of quality you're talking about, but absolutely you'd think 50 years, and they're just since they just wrapped up their touring career, that now would be a great time to celebrate the 50th anniversary of that album, since we're just
Yeah.
a few months removed from it.
And I guess then the question is, does the label want to do it? But it's like, well, you did Creatures.
Yeah,
You did a
thankfully.
gigantic box set for Creatures and
Yeah,
obviously one for Destroyer, which makes sense. The Creatures one I thought was a little kind of out of left field when that was first announced, and I mean I was
yeah.
happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a 40th anniversary box set for Lick It Up. I'll take one for the debut album. Love the Destroyer, the Creatures ones, and
Yeah.
and
So at any rate, I don't know. I thought it was it's a good addition to my rock and roll library, and I give it a big thumbs up. Martin Popoff does a great job with it. I'm looking forward to reading the Van Halen one. And yeah, I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts
well,
on?
correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the first book that Martin's written about Kiss? Because I believe
Yeah,
in the past he's been asked about it, and he's like, "There's a lot of books about Kiss. Well, I don't really need to do that."
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so when I saw that he did this, because I stumbled across it, and I was
Mhm.
like, I gotta jump on this because I'm like, I don't think he doesn't say much about. If you watch some videos, he'll rank Kiss albums and talk about the band, but he's never written about them. So I really wanted to see what he would pull from this huge. I mean, think this history is insane. I mean, they
Mhm.
started the band before you were even born, and they
Mhm.
just saw them on their last tour last fall.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's insane. So it's like, what's he going to pick out of a 50-year career to talk about? And this is a really nice book
yeah.
in that respect. So I would encourage people to go out and buy it, check it out.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously he has an audience and a reach that far surpasses ours with our, like maybe the three people that might watch this, but maybe it's one of those three people that hasn't heard of this yet. So
Yeah,
can't hurt. We'll pop the link down there below to Martin Popoff. You can order stuff directly from him. He signs every book uh, personally. So
personalizes it. Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, and honestly, I think as somebody who likes to write and record and be creative in our own right, I like you look back on our creative past, and it just inspires me a little bit when I read about the bands that we grew up listening to. So reading about them is a big part of my band fandom, basically. So, and I'm guessing you would probably agree with that yourself.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's before we got on, you started talking about we talked briefly about their beginning, and
Hmm.
it's fascinating to go back and revisit that, even in the context of these essays that he's done. It's I never get tired of it.
Yeah.
I don't. You and I have talked about how we love our favorite band's backstories, and I just never get tired of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So at any rate, just do a little quick plug of our own stuff, if you don't mind. Okay,
Mhm.
we use the name Underlords of the Overworld as just kind of a fancy way. It was kind of a little moniker we came up, a way of kind of a play on the concept of an underdog and a play on the concept of like an unknown. You know, that's basically the idea. And we started off as an instrumental, just writing instrumental rock stuff because we couldn't find a singer, and it just kind of evolved into a crazy backstory written by our bass player that is 99.9% hogwash, but it's a fun romp, which he
Mhm.
expanded into a broader universe. He writes under the name H. Prescott Lemon, and his stories are fun. They're quick paced. And I'm biased, but I think the music's kind of cool. If you're looking for good background music for your D&D, campaigns, it's good for
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I'll put some links below if anybody's interested in supporting us. That's cool. It's great. If not, that's great too. Everybody's got to do their own thing.
yeah.
But if you like what you see, follow us. Do the like thing, put a
Hit the
comment
like
there.
button.
Yeah. If you've read any of Popoff's work, let us know. If you've read Kiss at 50, if you haven't, go get it. It's really good. All right. Anything else, Brent?
I think that's it. We're good until next time.
All right. Take care.